Thanks for joining us today on the Healthy Church Staff podcast. My name is Todd Rhoades. I'm one of the co-founders over at chemistrystaffing.com. And if you've been on our journey, congratulations. We've been on this journey through what we're calling the 10 Commandments for church staff. And today is commandment number 10. So we've already done 9. If you missed any of those 9, go ahead and hit subscribe wherever you're listening, and you'll get access to the first 9. I think there's some really good stuff in there. But we've been talking about the 10 Commandments for church staff. My heart is really for church staff, and my work during the day, my main work is at Chemistry Staffing, as I mentioned, and we work with some great churches all across the country and many more candidates. And my passion is really for the candidates because I've been on a church staff or had been on a church staff for many years, and I just have a heart and really care for candidates. So what I wanted to do with these 10 commandments is just share 10 things that I've learned or seen as significant in my ministry over the last 30 years that I hope will help you. Some of these aren't, I like to say, they're not rocket surgery. They're not rocket science, okay? And they're all biblically based, but I think they can serve as a great reminder in your day-to-day ministry and your future ministry, long-term ministry, to look at these. Use them as guardrails to let you know, okay, a little check in my spirit on commandment number 7 or commandment number 4. Am I seeking wisdom? Do I have a spirit of service? I'm not prioritizing love here or practicing humility. Some of these I hope will guide you and direct you to keep your path straight and really to cultivate a healthy work-life balance. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today with commandment number 10. Commandment number 10 is rely on God's strength, okay? And we're going to take the verse from 2 Corinthians 12:9. King James says, my grace is sufficient for thee, my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, I will rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. And then I think the Message says, my grace is enough, it's all you need. My strength comes into its own in your weakness, okay? So let's face it, being on a church staff is stressful. In my work at church staffing, I always chuckle because we get a lot of candidates that, at least from time to, no, it's pretty often, that they're maybe young, they're maybe old, they've never really at all worked in a church, they don't have any education, maybe they've just gone to church for 20 years, and they think, I think it'd be really cool to work in a church. So I'm going to put in my resume. And I always just chuckle because working in a church is stressful. That it can be very stressful at times. And it's very easy when that stress kicks in to not fully rely on God's strength. So we're going to look at some red flags here that may indicate that, hold on here, a little check in my spirit. Maybe I need to reconsider whether I'm really doing this under my strength, trying to do this on my own, do this without God's help, or really lean into the strength that God offers. Okay, the first one is pretty obvious, I think, is burnout. And man, coming up after the pandemic, we saw just, I don't want to say an epidemic of epidemic proportions, but that would be a pun, but I guess it would fit. We saw so many people that were burned out. I always say that everybody was tired after COVID, okay? Some were just tired. They were exhausted. Some were angry. They came out of it, and for certain reasons, they were just angry. Some took their anger even harder and turned bitter, and some that bitterness turned into burnout. So burnout is one of those things that happens, unfortunately, and I think we've all probably been there to one degree or another during our ministry, if we've been in ministry very long. But burnout really can occur when you try to do everything in your own strength and you're not relying on God's strength. Even when you rely on God, man, there's so much stress and pressure. But if you're feeling exhausted, here's a key for me. If I start to feel cynical or detached from my work, those are early signs for me that I need to come back and check this and say, okay, am I trying to do this on my own, or am I trying to do this under God's strength? Okay. So burnout is one area. Another area is pride. If you find that you tend to want to take credit for the successes in the ministry instead of giving God some glory, it could be a sign of self-reliance, probably is a sign of self-reliance. I've met a boatload of prideful church leaders and over in my day, and more than I care to, and they sicken me a little bit. Okay, it's if you're going to take all the credit for the good stuff, you got to take credit for some of the bad stuff too. And those people that the prideful people usually are quick to take credit and quick to throw other people under the bus. I'll get off my soapbox there, but if pride is an issue with you, if you feel like, wow, this is really cool, look what I did here, the I is going to cause you a problem. Here's another one. If you find that you have a great deal of fear or anxiety, if there's a constant presence of fear, especially when it comes to what's happening in your church and in your ministry, it may indicate more of a reliance on yourself than of God. Not always, but it's always healthy to wonder how things are going to go. And a lot of times we take risks in ministry. But if you just have this sense of fear, this sense of anxiety all the time, it could be that you really just need to hand over some of that over and rely more fully on God. Finally, let's look at this one as the last one. If you feel like you just have a lack of peace and the joy is gone, it could be that you're not always, but it could mean that you're just relying on your own strength. God says his yoke is easy and his burden is light. A heavy, joyless spirit could indicate more of a self-reliance than a God reliance. And there are periods of time and phases, right, when you do have experienced kind of a lack of joy and peace, and it takes you a little while to figure out. But if you're going into an extended period of just no joy, no peace, it could be something that, hey, you just have to go back and do a check and say, okay, how am I doing here in this area of relying on God's strength? Okay, so there you have it. Those are the 10 commandments. As I said, if you missed any of the first ones, the first 9, just go ahead and hit subscribe and you can go back and listen to those. I think there's a lot of good stuff there. Here would be my recommendation for you is you might look through this and say, Todd, I think I'm doing pretty good. That's great. Pick 1 or 2 areas that you think maybe are the weaker areas and just work on those in the next couple weeks. Others of you listening may listen to all of these and read all these 10 commandments and say, man, Todd, I am in a sorry state. Again, my recommendation to you would be, let's pick the top 2 for the next 2 weeks. Maybe this week concentrate on one, next week concentrate on the next one, and just really work on this. Healthy church staff, I really believe if they could get a grasp on these 10 principles, these 10 commandments, it could really help you in your day-to-day ministry and long-term as you seek to serve Jesus in your role on a church staff. Okay, I'd love to hear your comments. You can reach out to me anytime, podcast@Chemistry Staffing, and I would love to hear from you and hear your comments. If you have any questions, we're going to be taking some episodes in the near future and just answering some of the questions that are coming in. So if you have any questions, podcast@chemistrystaffing.com. I hope you've enjoyed this series on the 10 Commandments for church staff, and join us again soon, right here on the Healthy Church Staff Podcast.